So anyway, yeah, we all have all these struggles. I'm sure people have thought about all that, and we all make our decisions. So getting back to the guy in Sacramento, what a tangent. I'm gonna call him Rick. I really don't remember his name. Rick is about as good a name as it could be, or Ron, or Robert, or it seemed like there was an R. I'm gonna call him Rick. So Rick is also the guy, street urchin, whatever, that taught me about hoboing. And by hoboing, I just mean mainly hopping freight trains. There's several classes of being on the road or on the street level that people use words in kind of specific ways. Bum is kind of the bottom of the barrel. Panhandler, bum, generally means that there's a street person, but they can't really do anything for themselves, or not much more than to beg money. And a lot of the street cred or whatever assumes you're better off than having to beg money. And yet people do it, and I don't mean any disrespect, but a lot of times if someone's talking to a homeless person, they call them a bum, it's a little bit of an insult. Then you got tramp, and tramp has a little more prestige. Tramp kind of means you're tramping around or traveling, and that's kind of not looked at as a bad thing. So if you call a street person a tramp, and they're literally using that lifestyle to move around the U.S., to travel to different cities and see stuff and learn stuff and experience stuff and travel that way, that's kind of not bad. That's kind of okay to be referred to as a tramp. Now, it has a negative connotation or derogatory meaning that, you know, oh, he's just a bum, he's a tramp, and, you know, can be meant insultingly, but mostly from one street person to another, to say, yeah, I know this tramp down there that's been to Alaska or whatever, you know, it's not necessarily a bad connotation. It can be okay. And then hobo kind of specifically means that they're a tramp, but they're a tramp who also travels by freight, at least sometimes travels by freight. Trains sometimes. He hobos, he hops trains. And I'm not sure that that's a hard and fast true and by the dictionary definition. Don't know exactly if that's true or whether I'm interpreting a little bit here, but that's kind of what I felt like people meant when they said someone was a hobo or talked about hobos. That they meant specifically that they were not just street people or traveling tramps or whatnot, but they also, at least some of the time, traveled by freight train. In that respect, I'm gained a little bit of the hobo title, not enough to be a very efficient one, but I had two very significant train rides. I think in one of the videos I've already described one or two of them, but anyway. So this guy Rick in Sacramento, this petty thief, breaking and entering guy, B&E guy, told me about trains, at least quite a bit. And we had talked about going to Hawaii. That was the guy I mentioned that when I met him in Sacramento, he said that if you can get up the money to get a ticket, plane ticket to Hawaii, you don't have to worry about your ticket home because you live and tramp around there for a while and the authorities catch up with you. They're going to ship you back. They'll give you a free ride back, just leave Hawaii. They don't want to have bums running around their resort area, which completely understandable. And yet there's a native population there that perhaps are a little bit leaner, and I don't mean poor, but, you know, they have normal people there too. It's not all rich and glam and glorious. But I'm sure if they'd had such a program, I could understand that they would want to limit the number of bums that are just beach bums hanging out on their beaches and whatnot. When they say beach bum, that's not necessarily a negative connotation of bum, although bum usually is negative. If you're a beach bum, and that's kind of cool. It's at least cooler than just being a bum downtown somewhere holding your sign up. We'll sit here and hold sign for food. Being a beach bum means you kind of hang out on the beaches and maybe you bum off of people on the beach, and that's not such a bad thing. But getting on to the trip to Hawaii, we figured if we could just get up the money to buy the ticket over there, then we'd hang out for a while and let the authorities eventually ship us back if that's what they had in mind to. So we had that little discussion a few times, dream. I never did get over there, never made that leap. But we were also talking about going to San Francisco from Sacramento. I mentioned I wanted to go that way, and he said he knew a good way to go by hopping a freight train. Or hopping, I don't know if this was a regular train, Amtrak. But so we went out to the end of the yard that faced out the direction we were going. And that's one of the rules he told me about. So if you're going west, go to the west end of the yard and find a track leading out of the yard going to the west end. If you're going east, go to the east end of the yard. I guess I got it mixed up. West end of the yard, east end of the yard. I don't know which way I'm pointing. But you go to the end of the yard, other direction you want to go, and wait for a train. Looks like it's getting ready to go out that way. And if you're not in the yard, sometimes the trains are still moving slow enough you can hop on them, and the yard bull, yard police guard, whatever, security guard, is less likely to see you, or if he sees you, he has no jurisdiction. He can call a city cop or county cop, whoever's available out there, outside of the yard area to come and grab you, but unless you're in his yard, he doesn't have any jurisdiction, so you're kind of avoiding that, and if the train's still moving slow enough, you're not taking too horribly great a risk. But here we were on the western edge of the yard out of Sacramento, and he wanted me to jump on a train that was moving, and it wasn't moving as fast as you see the train moving when they're highballing or when they're really going down the road. I'll grant you that. It was still just picking up speed, but it was probably going 5 miles an hour, and maybe a little closer to 10 miles an hour. You know, moving on, starting to move. Fast enough you'd have to run to keep pace with it. And I think we saw a boxcar. I believe it must have been a freight train. Somewhere in my mind it seemed like maybe we passed up one that was all silver like Amtrak. So maybe there was an Amtrak one that zipped by and then the freight train. But in any case, I believe we saw a boxcar that was open. And he started off. He started running to catch up with the boxcar. And I started running behind him, but I'm looking at it and I'm saying, well, where do you grab and how do you swing yourself up? And thinking all of that while I'm thinking about falling under those wheels. And I think before he got up to it, because he would have probably just jumped right in there, probably having done it a few times before, I backed out. I said, no, I can't do this. I can't do it. I can't do it. It's too dangerous. I'm sure that's disappointing to him. And I'm not sure how fast and tight we were hanging out, but apparently he wanted to travel to San Francisco too, and so it was convenient for both of us to travel together. So he stopped running after the train, and we just caught our breath and started talking about alternate routes and methods of travel. One way or another, I think we got up enough money for a bus ticket and rode the bus from Sacramento to San Francisco. Seriously, I did buy stuff with food stamps and on occasion use some of that change for whatever else I needed. And I don't remember specifically in this circumstance that happening. And I don't remember exactly where else it might have happened, but I didn't try to live that way. That wasn't my whole big scheme of existence, go everywhere and scam the food stamps so I can make some money. It just don't work like that, folks. People talk about how it's all these scams and stuff. I'm going to tell you what, you got several days of sitting around a welfare office and filling out forms and trying to figure out a way to get them to accept you as a, you know, indigent, or whatever they call it, the street person, that you don't have a house, but you're still living in their town. A lot of them, they say you got to have some kind of address, so tell me what bridge you sleep under. You know, they would accept that, but you'd have to be specific. Yeah, that bridge over at 4th and Main Street, that's the one I sleep under. That's where my residence is. And, you know, waiting for hours in those offices. Now, I'm not saying that that's not doable. I'm just saying it's a whole lot to do to get less than $100 worth of food stamps. And that's only per month. So, you know, you probably had to go back a couple of times to the office at least. I don't know. And I don't think I'm exaggerating to say it probably took 5 hours to 8 hours or more to get $70 worth of food stamps. Sure, that don't look like that's too bad, you know. And you do it if you're in those circumstances. It helps. You can buy peanut butter and bread and bologna and, you know, stuff, make yourself some food. It's worth it if you've got nothing better to do and no better way to make money. But everybody's talking about everybody getting over on welfare and stuff, and maybe there's some baby trains out there that make do, but I'm here to tell you, it's not easy. It's not a simple way to exist. And although there are abuses and people who try to get over in the system that way, as a rule, welfare is not a big get-rich-quick scheme for anybody. The few people that maybe make a go of it, that really scam it, may be making hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars on the taxpayer's dime. Sure, there are probably some people who do that. But the people that I saw and my particular instances of using it, I'll grant you, everyone's better off if they can work and make a living. But in my circumstances at that time, having that little extra really made a lot of difference in what I could do and whether or not I could even stay neater and cleaner and work a job. In a few cases, just doing day labor and stuff like that. So I'm not saying let's increase welfare or make it easier for anybody, but I'm here to tell you the few times that I got any kind of stipend at all, most of the time it was just food stamps, and most of the time it was only about $50 to $70 a month worth of food stamps for a single guy. And most of the time they cost me 5 to maybe 8 or 10 hours of sitting around in some welfare office and, you know, filling out forms and going through the interviews and, you know, being coming back later and picking up the stamps or the card, and you know, seeing it through. It's not as easy as everybody wants to make it out, like, oh, everybody's on welfare and it's so easy to go get it and I'm paying for all them people. You know, get over yourself, man. You know, it's not that way. Really, it is not that way. And I'll entertain any discussion on the matter that people want to bring up and cry to me about, oh, everybody's taxing me and taking away my money so I can sit around and be lazy and stuff like that. And sure, maybe some cases that happens, but it's not as much as you might think. And a lot of towns, I think San Diego was one. I hadn't got to San Diego yet in my storytelling, but I think they did offer you some food stamps and maybe even a little bit of a stipend to give you lodging, like they'd give you $100 or something to pay for a one-room hotel room down on Skid Row somewhere or something for a week or something. But that would only be like 1 week out of the month or something. They'd be able to, they'd give you enough to stay off the street. And that helps, you know, that would help a few people maybe get that start they needed. And that's what it was for. And there was a time I used it, maybe not to the full advantage that it was meant as, but the thing with San Diego is they make you work for it. And that's what I'm saying too. Sometimes the welfare isn't as easy as just sitting around an office for 5 hours. In San Diego, I think it was like maybe a week's worth of work. Maybe you had to put in 40 hours. That sounds like a lot, but it seemed like to me, at least for several days during a week, I was spending 6 or 8 hours picking up trash in parks. They give you the plastic bags, 4 or 5 of them. You stick them in your belt loop, so you got one ready and you got one here, and give you a stick with a little pointy tip on it. You walk around, pick up all the trash out of the park. And they have a supervisor, and there are other people that they're coordinating this. Is a real coordinated effort. It's not just haphazard and you tell them that you picked up trash or bring them a bag of trash. It's not like that. You're out there under a supervisor picking up trash and putting it in their truck. They'll have a truck with you and cleaning up that park. And you do that for 40 hours out of a month. And they'll give you $70 worth of food stamps and $100 for a hotel room for a week. So I'm just saying, part of my whole road rules, the way I lived, I didn't do a lot of thieving. I might have done 1 or 2 things. I didn't try to break laws or try to intimidate people or try to get over that way, robbing or anything. For the most part, I didn't panhandle. For the most part, I tried to do everything up and above board, everything legal, everything morally acceptable the best I could. I'll grant you I'm not perfect and might have done a few things, but and when I did the food stamps, you know, you go and you buy yourself some bread and bologna and you got 80 cents left over. Well, that went in my pocket. And that was the old days. Now they got a card. There's no leftover change. It's on the card or it isn't, and you can spend it or you can't. But in those days, about bologna and bread for a couple of bucks, $3, and then you end up with 80-cent change in your pocket. I might have bought a pack of cigarettes for that or something and not thought about it. That it's not intended for that use, the food stamps, most places. They don't want you to buy tobacco or alcohol or bus ticket or plane ticket or gamble at the tracks with it. You know, no monetary value except to buy unprocessed food. You can't go to a restaurant and buy food. You got to go to a grocery store and buy food. Now, sometimes you can buy it out of the frozen food section and it's ready to go as soon as you thaw it, but you weren't supposed to buy it from a restaurant. You had to go to a grocery store and spend it there. And so I don't know. I did that a few times, and I'm not sure that this bus ride to San Francisco, from Sacramento to San Francisco, wasn't partly sponsored by food stamps in one way or another. But I think also some places, and I don't remember that Sacramento might have been one, where they will buy your bus ticket. The welfare department gave you $50, $60, $70 or something to buy a bus ticket.